Brigand Nightmare brings in a whole new difficulty level and the items from the Panama DLC right into the main story of Oaxaca. There's also some new textures and a new optional map that you can play in. In honor of the new difficulty mode, I made a melee character on badass mode and took the UBSC route, which I kind of find more harder and more fleshed out than the other route. And I consider it to be harder because there's more areas to go through and you have 2 bosses instead of 1. So as you can see from the video so far, there are new outfits for everybody. So everybody's got new snazzy outfits. I do kind of miss the old ones though, but it's something I guess. However, the new textures for the hounds and the scalp ghouls do look pretty cool and does match the new difficulty level. And in case you're wondering, the badass mode just adds in hunger, which does gradual damage once you get hungry. And once your hunger reaches a certain threshold, you can't sleep anymore, and using a bed only recovers up to 20 health. You'd think that hunger would do more than just damage you, like it would affect stats like strength or maybe meta a bit. But for what's there, it doesn't really add much difficulty to it. It's more just hindrances. Like, you'd have to find other ways to heal, and you just have to eat every now and then. It's not really much of a big deal. In terms of things that haven't been updated or improved upon, the AI is still stupid, so you're going to have to be careful when having them around. I mainly just use them as like pack mules, because they're not really going to be worth it in a fight, and they're probably just going to get themselves killed. And it's much better just to have them to have the extra inventory space. And as you would expect from a nightmare difficulty mode, the enemies hit harder and take more damage, but it didn't seem that way. It seems a lot more easier from the last time I played. I don't know if it's just from experience or the game actually did get easier, but compared to how it was, there isn't much of any instant death moments anymore, which I would assume is a good thing. However, I would kind of expect that for a nightmare difficulty mode, and I would rather have no instant death moments on a regular mode. And even with using just a melee character, it still wasn't that bad. Especially if you get the armor and the cybernetics, and you just know how to optimize your stats. It's really easy. Now granted, there were still worse moments where I did die instantly, especially with the ninjas with the rifle guns instead of the pistols. But I still think from whatever changed, it should switch back to how it was for the nightmare mode and keep the updated version for the regular mode. From what's told, the harder parts of the story have not increased in difficulty, and I would assume those would be like the temple and the airship. But still, I just want to feel the pain, especially if it's called nightmare mode. I'd kind of expect this being just fucking difficult, but it really wasn't. And of course, difficulty is relative, so it might be easier to me, but harder for you, or maybe even you find it a lot more easier, who knows. But overall, it didn't seem like much of a change. Although I would recommend doing the nightmare mode on a second playthrough and not for the first. With the items from the Panama DLC being implemented into Oaxaca, there really wasn't a whole lot of them. I could barely find any flowers. I bet you could count all of them on one hand. And in terms of like bamboo and woodworking, it's just not worth it. You find like a couple of like bamboo trees in the beginning, but you find the bulk of them on the beach. And by then you're already getting like glaives and whatnot. So there's really no incentive to use them or any of the new Panama stuff. It would have been nice to see the enemies use some of the Panama weapons, like the spears. I've only seen one enemy within the entire thing actually drop, say, like spears, but it would have been nice to see them, like, using them to actually fight against you. At least that would add some variety. But you do have things like bear traps and some additional enemies in some areas that do at least add on to the experience. Because it felt like so little has changed by Chapter 5, which is the halfway point, I was pretty much ready for the end. But luckily, from Chapter 5 and onward, you actually can access the optional map. First, you have to get to Loma Larga, then go to Arsenal and do all the missions for him, which include the mosquito repellent leaf and killing the pirates on the coast. Then after all that, a new dialogue option unlocks and you're able to take a rowboat to the Shrouded Cove. It's a very small map, and the mission that is included within it is also very short. It'll take you like maybe 5 minutes to do it, depending on how fast you move. If you're speedrunning it, you can definitely do it in a minute. In terms of loot, there really isn't much to it. It's very well worth it for voodoo players though, because there is a bunch of spell tomes. And the new voodoo magic that is included is pretty neat. You're able to summon some demons and be able to control them, and also to make demons your allies. So they're fun to play around with. There's a few other things, but I'd rather leave it for a surprise and just not to spoil it. But other than that, there's really not much else to the map. Overall, considering that really not much has changed, I feel a bit of buyer's remorse. Probably because the way it was advertised, it seemed like there was a lot more to it than what was actually there. Especially in its name, how it's called Brigand Nightmare. It's more like Brigand Night Bear because barely anything changed. I'd feel more okay if this was advertised as a supporter pack in order to finance the creator's weed and alcohol fund, as well as some massages and therapy. And that way you can have some sort of support in order to create more games such as Warlordocracy. And more so just to help out a indie developer that's been communicative, responsive, and just overall a genuine person that's trying to make the most of life by creating games. We all have to pay the bills somehow, and even if this is just a cash grab, it's better to think of it as a supporter pack instead of a content DLC. That's it for this one. Hopefully you found this video helpful, and thank you for watching. See ya.